so that I can say that we're talking about GitHub here. GitHub has a lot of tools. It's a pretty intimidating web page at the start, but we're going to go very slow and steady and talk specifically about something called a repository. Okay? So, your entry task is going to get into this. Think about how you could see your entry task applying to what I'm about to show you. But a repository, like the emoji suggests right here, because I have these new tools, is going to work like a bucket. All right? So, repositories, the same way that I keep mentioning Canvas has a root folder that contains everything it needs to function, just like Instagram has a root folder that contains everything it needs to function. Both of those apps contain at least one repository, or repo, or bucket, that houses everything they need to stay organized. And we're going to create one of those today because they will help in our deployment of our final pages. Your job today is to create a repository. I'm going to walk you through the steps. It is very, very easy. You guys have a very light day today. Vercel is still blocked, so that potentially is not true. I just keep forgetting to change it. And we're also going to practice documentation by updating our first README file. If you've already used GitHub before, if you're in Comp Sci or any of the Python courses or some of the other courses offered by Sakti Kumar or Brown, this is stuff you probably have already done, but that's not everybody in here. So we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to see how these things work and function. Okay? We're going to define what a repository is. We're going to show you how to use them, and I'm going to walk you through creating them. And our goal for the day is to create a repository to host our HTML pages and then eventually a React app. Good. So if you haven't looked at the weekly agenda for Thursday today and you've missed out on my incredible drawing of how GitHub works, that's okay, because I'm going to do it one more time for your class. All right? Talking about this one right here. So this was a different period. Let me just get rid of all this junk real fast. Okay, so, doesn't want to be gone. Hold up. Hold on. Be gone. Delete. There we go. So, repositories are almost always going to equal buckets. And this is going to be a very simplified version of how GitHub works because it is quite an advanced tool and a very useful thing to use that can get really overwhelming really quickly. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. With creating repos, with creating these buckets, you get the benefit of something called a push and a pull cycle. Okay? So I'm going to write this out. That's a little big. Let me make my brush a little bit smaller. My old drawing is back. Be gone. Vanished. I want to see it. Okay. So 5 pixels. So we got push cycle and pull cycle. Okay? So how this works, step by step, is, let's say we're in our VS Code. Pretend this is a computer, okay? Even though I might teach graphic design, it's not exactly my greatest skill. Okay, I'm a photographer by trade. Okay, we got a computer here with some code on it, and we're typing, making everything nice and interactive, making everything cool and fun and interesting. And when we're ready to send this out to the internet, to flex it with our users, we need to do something called a push. Okay? And we're going to push that into the next thing I'm going to show you. What's important to understand is that this is version number 0, at least, of our web page. We haven't fully deployed yet. We haven't done what's called a commit to put the page up on the internet. Okay? Now, before I go into the rest of this example, web design, web development, programming, coding has a lot of features that have 2 names for the same thing, or almost the same thing. Okay? So, this is always going to be called push and pull, is what it's supposed to say right here instead of cycle. Let me get rid of that real fast. Pretend that this always said pull, cycle. Okay? Right? Our initial push is called a commit, and in order for a commit to occur, it needs to have a bucket to land in. All right, so here's our bucket. This is version number 1. Okay, we've done our initial push. We've created our web page, got it fully functional. Okay, our web page has a whole bunch of version number 1 specific code in it that makes it available on the open internet. Okay, so what happens all the time in web design is something goes out of date, something breaks, somebody on the other internet, because the internet is still managed by people, moves it, does something where it becomes that your version 1 is no longer functional. Right? Version 1 is broken. There's just stuff everywhere, and it's a whole big mess, and we got to clean it up. Okay? The cool part about GitHub, and the cool part about this push-pull cycle, let me extend my canvas a little bit for a little bit later. After you do your commit, you can do at any time something called a pull request. All right? And that's going to create a fork in your buckets. Oh, that was bad bucket. Okay, we'll go. That was an even worse bucket. I've drawn too many buckets today. I'm losing my mind. Okay, so the old broken version of the bucket is still up there, but when we do a pull request, as you can see here, we'll do it into a separate bucket where we have the opportunity. Perhaps this is bucket number version 1.1. Right? 1.1. Now, we can go in and figure out what's not working from version 1 with some different codes, some different debugging, some different bug fixes, etc., until we get version 1.1 functional. All right? Once version 1.1 is ready, the next stage in the push-pull cycle, if it's not pull, do you guys think it's, what do you think it is? It's not a pull. It's another PU word. Push, exactly. We're going to push that updated code back into the timeline. Okay, so this is a push. What happens is version 1 still exists on the timeline here, but we've landed at version 2 of the website, which is in another bucket. Okay, it's going to combine everything that worked from version number 1 with what everything we fixed for version number 2 to ultimately create V2. Okay? And this is helpful. This is related to your entry task because this is version history right here. This is one website with, let's count them, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 separate save points, 4 separate versions, 4 separate pieces of history in this time travel, this timeline that we've made from version 0, actually coding, to commit, to doing a pull and a push. Okay, let's get rid of all these. Once we're happy with our functional page, the last push, the same way that the first push has a different name, even though it's still just a push, is called a deploy. Okay? A deploy. It's a good thing I don't teach handwriting. Okay? What deploying does is it pushes your finished site based on the work you've done in each of these different GitHub repositories, repos for short, okay? GitHub repository, excuse me. We deploy this to the internet, which I'm going to draw as a really quick globe. Okay, we got North America, and then we got Mexico, and then we got Central America, and then here's South America, right? Here's Greenland, here's Europe, here's Africa. Okay, we're on the internet. We've deployed our page to the web. Oh, that's a W now. Web, so that our users, these guys, can access. They have really broad shoulders. Okay. Oh, that's not a shoulder. Let's do this. Okay. Here's our users. They can access the information that we've deployed in our last push. Okay. GitHub makes this whole process a lot easier, and we're just going to focus on creating these repositories today. Okay? So how do you actually do that? Okay, this was first page example, and it looks pretty similar. From your GitHub homepage, which I'll let you log into here in just a second, okay, you should see in the top right corner your profile icon. All right, I made a couple of changes to the screen share that should show you when I do recordings like these. It should look exactly like it does on your monitor. So you have the opportunity to follow exactly what I'm doing. There should be an option right here that says Your Repositories. However, it's likely that you guys need your phones to do two-factor authentication, which I highly, highly, highly recommend that you have turned on to sign in to your GitHub. Okay? So yours probably looks something like this. If you're clicking the link in the resources, this guy right here, watch, I also have this, Boosh. Okay? GitHub lives right there in the weekly agenda. Probably looks like this when you go log in. Okay? sign in, my password is saved, but I do need my phone for a two-factor authentication code. So if this is the case for you, you can get your phone for the next 5 minutes. Okay, you got to put it back after the 5 minutes. Okay, if you need a phone for a two-factor auth to log into your GitHub account, which you should be doing right now, you can go get your phone. So I got to get mine real fast, but it's got to go back in the pockets by 12:35. All right, 028364. I like the Apple password manager. It works well for me, but you can use whatever password manager you like, so I highly recommend you have one of those as well. Okay, settle down, refocus. It is 12:35. Okay, let's talk about the next stages. Since we need to make, hey guys, please. We need to make buckets for each of our websites that we're creating so our computer understands where it needs to reach when we ask it to grab a specific thing. Okay? To do this, it is very, very simple. It's extremely simple, but I want to show you exactly how to do it so that we always know how when you use GitHub in the future. All right? You click on your profile in the top right-hand corner. You go to the second option right here that says Your Repositories. Let me use my cool new zoom-in feature. It looks like this, okay? Your Repositories, right? Click on that. I have a couple open already. Yours will probably say you have none, okay? Unless you're in the other comp sci programs or you've used GitHub before, this is going to be blank. We're going to make that not blank right now. Extremely simple process by clicking this new button in the top right-ish corner. If you have dark mode on like I do, it's probably blue. If you have light mode on, I think it's green. Depending on whatever GitHub theme you selected, we want to create a new repository. All right? Now, web design is not a particular system that loves when you're creating files. It does not love spaces, and it does not always love capitalization. Okay? So, when I'm talking about content, as a reminder, I'm going to quiz you guys on this later in the year. Content equals what the user sees on the site. Right? So when we're creating content for the user to actually interact with, we use proper punctuation and capitalization. So if I went to the store, it looks something like this. Okay? Now, when you're naming a file, you don't want to do these. Again, computers are very literal. Okay? So, there's a couple options for how you're going to name your repository, which we're going to show you here in a second. One of those options, if you've taken any Python courses or you know any JavaScript already, is called camel case. Now, camel case is a way to write things, specifically file names and utilities and stuff that the computer uses, not the user, not the person, where the first letter is always lowercase, and then everywhere there would be a space, there's a capital. Okay? It's named this because it looks like the humps on a camel. I went to the store. All right? That's camel case. That's really frequent in Python and in Java. I like to name my files like this because I just personally like the way that it looks. But as far as a functional standpoint, it doesn't do much for file names besides keep it interesting. You can also choose to use dashes or underscores, hyphens or underscores I mean, to separate the words in your sentences. For example, this is all lowercase. You would say something like, I went to ... etc. Or potentially something more like, I _went _to ... etc. Okay, the reason that we do this is because not all computers are made equal. There's a ton of different options for performance, a ton of different options for operating system. There's a ton of different options for user understanding. When they actually get their computer, how well can they use it, right? By doing this with your file names and with your utilities like a repository, like a bucket, it allows the computer to better understand what you want it to do. It also, if you're sending websites to an older machine, maybe something more grandparent speed, the computer can more easily understand what you're asking of it because it has the simplicity of, oh, I know for sure that's a space. It can't always guess what this means. So, anyways, that's a long tangent for me to say what you name your repository is p5, lowercase, dash, test, dash, root. You can also alternatively use underscores. I'll use underscores for you guys because I used hyphens for 1 and 4. Call it P5 test root. Okay? All you need to do for this first step. A description is optional. You do not need to add one. I'm going to put classroom example for 5th period. Okay? You can choose public or private. You can change this later on. The thing you do need to do is check this box that says add a README file, which you can, that's definitely not the right button. Sorry. This is still not the right button. Let's try this one. There we go. Okay. You want to make sure that this box is checked. All right? This add a README file right here is checked. Oh, dang it. Okay. Check that box. When you've finished all those pieces, go down to the bottom here and create your repository. Okay? It's going to think for a second. And now you're faced with this screen right here, which has an About section, because I added one this time. You can see the About section is reflected here. It's got a README, which is what we're going to move on to next. Activity, stars, watching, and forks is an interesting one. This is the process of forking right here. Okay? Making pull requests, doing your changes, pushing it back to a main branch. It creates a fork like you would see in a road, or like you would see in a family tree, or like you would see in a regular tree with the wood and the leaves and stuff. Okay? Branches, right? Since we haven't forked this page yet, nothing is going to be there. Nothing's going to be present. Nobody's favorited it. I'm the only one watching it because I'm the creator, etc., blah, blah, blah. We need to focus on this README file right over here, okay? This guy. This README is what we're going to be editing, and this is your first time practicing documentation, okay? So, if you click on that, you're going to see inside of here, it's got the title of the repository, and then if you added a description, it'll say that right here. We want to go over to this pencil on the right-hand side of the screen and click Edit This File. Okay? Now, what a README does is serves as a sort of manual for your code/project. Okay? So let's say you're making a new Instagram 2. It's called Toonstagram with the number 2. Okay? This would tell people how to install it. This would tell people how you went about coding. This would tell people about the bugs that you fixed. This is a manual for other people to understand what's going on in your projects. Jack.
I'm a little behind. How did you get here?
You go, you click here, repositories, and then you follow the create repository step. And then we're here in the README, which you can check in a second. So, the README serves as a manual. Because GitHub has a lot of social features, if you're struggling to get something to work, you can push it to a public branch and ask for somebody, hey, can somebody help me fix this? They'll do a pull, do what they need to, push it back, and you can see what they did. Okay? That's a really useful part about GitHub and about collaborating, is because we're going to do a lot of collaborating in here, and development is always inherently going to be teamwork. You can work alone, but it's going to be harder to get things done because there is a lot of steps in creating a website. Okay? What I want you guys to do right now in your README for this test repository is summarize what you have learned about repos, which is short for repositories, so far. Okay? So spend about 5 minutes doing that till about 12:48. Don't do anything else. Just write it in your README what you've learned about repos so far. Oop, not that one. All right, friends, refocus. Voices off, please, and thank you. Okay, what we're going to do next is this big ol' commit changes button right here. We need to do our last push because our last push is the deployment, which we'll get to a little bit later. We are going to be clicking, oops, that's too big. We're going to be clicking this commit changes right here, okay? When you do that, it's going to pop up with this little icon or this little window as such. If you've already done this step, just sit tight. Every time you make a change to a repository, whether that's uploading a file, removing a file, forking code, debugging, making changes to the actual raw HTML, all types of different things where you're adjusting an existing website, you want to do a commit, okay? You want to keep these, hold on guys. You want to keep these to a minimum. You don't want to commit every time you write a new period and back to a comma and back to a period. That's going to clog up your GitHub. Okay? Think of this like drafting when you write essays. Okay? You can add an optional message. I'm going to say example in class of a commit, which has two M's, one T. Commit. It's going to commit it directly back into the main branch, like you can see right here. Okay? We haven't done anything. We haven't done any pulls. We haven't made any changes to push them back to the main branch. We're still in this section right here to make sure that our version 1 bucket is functional. Okay? Click commit. When you do that, it's going to take you to a screen that shows you the manual for your code, the README for this repository. Right? When you go to your code for this repository, you can click the code button in the far left here. It'll show you the whole page like this. The very top left, let me show you one more time. It's this one up here in the very top left. Okay? This is going to show you whatever you wrote in that README, whatever you put in the manual, appears to the person who checks out your repository. And that is all you need to do today. Create a repository, update a README, perform a commit. 3 very easy things on the exit task. So 4 very easy things that once you complete the exit task, I'm going to allow you to have your phones for the rest of the period. So, to complete the exit task, lock in for just one more second, click on your profile, and then click the words your profile right here. The exit task, if you find by going to Thursday and then discussion board, okay, the green exit task is asking you to copy and paste your GitHub profile to the post. That is this one right here. I know this was something that we did on the this on the syllabus form. Some of those links came in incorrectly, so I want to make sure that I have your accurate GitHub profile. Okay? You want to copy the one that includes your username. Okay? Right? See how this includes my B. Blakeney, my B. Florkney, or whatever you want to call it? Okay? You have to include the link, or bring in the link, that includes your GitHub profile. Okay? So then you'll click reply on the green P5 and paste that here. Now, number 1 is required. Number 2, however, is optional but extremely helpful. I can't remember if I showed this to you guys' class or not. I'm pretty sure it was just 4th period. Okay, there's a Google form right here that if you did something interesting event-wise, so cool concerts, cool music festivals, any vacations you've gone on recently, the person in charge of the events page in Yearbook needs a couple extra pictures. So you can optionally use this Google form to send it to that Yearbook team member. Please, she would hugely appreciate the help. If you guys have been to any cool concerts recently, you went on any interesting vacations, you did any interesting sporting events, perhaps you went to the Super Bowl, okay, stuff like that. All right, that's the second part of your exit task that is optional, but the first part is required. Okay, and that's all I need you to do today. Question? Yep, the link at the very top. Okay, good job, you guys.